हाय एवरीवन, होप यू गाइस आर डूइंग वेल। सो बहुत बार इस चैनल पे ये कमेंट आ चुका है कि कैट के अलावा भी किसी और एग्जाम की बात कर लिया करो, बट द थिंग वाज कि मैंने सिर्फ कैट ही एग्जाम दिया था। सो आई वांटेड टू इनवाइट समवन ऑन टू द चैनल जिसने मल्टीपल एमबीए एंट्रेंस एग्जाम्स हैंडल किए हों, सो दैट दैट इंडिविजुअल कुड हेल्प यू विद दिस एंटायर क्वेश्चन कि किस एग्जाम में क्या पैटर्न है, कहाँ से पढ़ना है एंड कैसे एंटायरली अपनी पूरी एमबीए प्रिपरेशन जर्नी को मैनेज करना है। So today we finally have Yash with us. Yash is an MBA Finance first year student from SIBM Pune. Yash ने multiple exams दिए हैं like CAT, ZAT, IAFT, SNAP, NMAT. And in fact, I'll ask Yash about all the calls that he had and how did he prepare for these different exams. So welcome Yash to the channel.
Hi Shweta, it's pleasure to be here on your channel finally. Please display my profile as well because it's not like I was a topper through and through. And it might be motivation for those people who think, yeah, I scored just 70% in my undergraduation. Will I be able to crack the examinations? And talking about my calls, I had calls from XLRI for BM and HR as well. I had call from IFT. I had call from IIM Shillong and all the other new and baby IIMs. NEET, NMIMS, SIBM Pune, SCMHRD. These are just few of the colleges that I had calls from.
So guys, whatever we are going to talk about in this interview, you'll find the questions added in the timestamps. So हो सकता है कि आपके लिए सारा इंटरव्यू रेलेवेंट ना हो, जो भी पोर्शन करंटली आपको तंग कर रहा है आप डेफिनेटली टाइम स्टैम्प पे जाके वो पर्टिकुलर पोर्शन चेक कर सकते हो। एंड उसमें जो सबसे स्टार्टिंग वाला क्वेश्चन है, लाइक द बेस क्वेश्चन, दैट इज कि जितने भी ये एमबीए एंट्रेंस एग्जाम्स होते हैं इनकी एक रफ टाइमलाइन क्या होती है, एंड लेट्स से कि व्हेन यू अपीयर्ड फॉर दीज एग्जाम्स उस ईयर में व्हाट वाज द टाइमलाइन ऑफ ऑल दीज exams that you were taking up?
I gave my examinations in 2021. So the first paper that I gave, that was of CAT 2021. It happened on 28th November. After that, I opted for NMAT. NMAT, you get a chance to choose the time slot you want. You can go on the center or you can give the examination at home as well. So it's roughly you get 1.5 months to choose from. The date I choose was 30th November. That was 2 days after CAT examination. After that, you have got IIFT. That happened on 5th December. The next exam that I gave, it was of SNAP. SNAP has got 3 slots, out of which you can give 2 examinations. I gave only one on the first one, that is on 19th December. The next 2 slots were on 8th January and 16th January. And the final examination that I gave, it was of ZAT. It took place on 2nd January 2022.
Now there was a particular question जो एक सब्सक्राइबर ने स्पेसिफिकली कमेंट किया था ऑन अ प्रीवियस वीडियो, विच वाज कि हाउ डू वी गो अबाउट चूजिंग दीज डेट्स फॉर द एग्जाम्स लाइक एनमैट या स्नैप जिनमें मल्टीपल स्लॉट्स होते हैं। एंड उसमें भी फर्दर बॉइल डाउन क्वेश्चन ये था कि इज देयर अ स्ट्रैटेजी वी शुड यूज व्हाइल चूजिंग दीज डेट्स, लाइक डज इट मैटर कि कितना डिफरेंस है?
या इट मैटर्स अ लॉट। अगर तुम्हारी एग्जाम्स बैक टू बैक हो रही है so you don't get that mental space to shift from one particular pattern to the next pattern. Like if you look at CAT may you get 40 minutes for 20 odd questions per section. You get 2 minutes per question. Whereas if you're going for exam like SNAP, in 1 minute you have to solve one question. The speed changes, the pattern changes, even there's a few changes in the syllabus as well. So you need to have proper gap between the examinations. Like in my case, मैंने NMAT की exam late choose करी. I chose 30th November because I messed up while choosing the date. It's preferable that you give NMAT examinations 15 days before CAT. It kind of builds your confidence because you are completing the syllabus 15 days beforehand. Then you are going for the CAT examination. Then you have got 1 week to prepare for IFT. And while choosing examination, SNAP mein you get 2 choices. You can choose up to 2 exam slots out of 3. My personal suggestion is go for the first one. And second one, like हमारे time पे it was 8th Jan and 16th Jan. It depends on you कितने जल्दी फ्री होना है और कितना time you think you need after that. If you think you need more time, choose 16 Jan. But if you want to get free early and if you want to prepare for GDPR beforehand, you can choose 8 Jan.
एक क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में है कि बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ना ऐसा बोलते हैं कि उनका फोकस इस समय किसी एक पर्टिकुलर एग्जाम पे नहीं है, दे आर कीपिंग ऑल द एग्जाम्स एज द सेम। तो इसमें मेरे 2 फर्दर सब क्वेश्चंस हैं। पहली बात तो ये कि हमें कौन से एग्जाम देने चाहिए, ये हम किस फैक्टर पे चूज़ करें, और दूसरा क्वेश्चन ये कि इन सारे एग्जाम्स को क्या हमें इक्वल वेटेज देनी चाहिए या डिड यू हैव अ प्रायोरिटी एग्जाम इन योर माइंड?
While choosing the examination, like I gave 5 exams. इसके अलावा there are tests, IPSAT, CMAT, Maharashtra CET. There are various examinations that you can give. Also GMAT, GRE. It depends on how much time gap you want between the examinations and what colleges you want to go in. The colleges that I wanted to go in, ये 5 exams में उनका entrance cover हो रहा था. And I had ample amount of time between 2 examinations to be in the mental space to give the examination at my best. 4 to 6 examinations is sufficient. don't overdo. Even if there's time between two examinations, एक time के बाद saturate हो जाता है इंसान, कैपेसिटी खत्म हो जाती है to go to the center and give the examination. And answering your second question कि which exam should one focus on या should one have multiple focus. Look, if you genuinely want to go for HR, obviously target ZAT pattern and TIS pattern. But if you are confused, you want to go for general MBA, focus on CAT because बाकी सारे exams का syllabus it revolves around CAT. कहीं पे थोड़ा कम है, कहीं पे थोड़ा ज्यादा है, कहीं पे there is an additional subject. Like in that you get DM, but it still revolves around it. You get ample amount of time to prepare after CAT examination. If you're preparing for CAT, तुम्हारे तीनों sections के basics proper strong है, you can go into any examination and crack those particular sections easily.
एंड मेरा जो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन है वो एक्चुअली इसी पे ही बेस्ड है कि यू मेंशन कि कैट को अगर आप बेस बना लेते हो एंड बाकी के सारे एग्जाम्स उसी के अराउंड रिवॉल्व करते हैं, सिर्फ थोड़ा बहुत ट्वीक होता है. सो व्हाट विल डू नाउ इज लेट्स स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द वेरी फर्स्ट एग्जाम दैट यू टुक and walk us through how did you prepare for that particular exam. Specifically if it's an exam like ZAT जहाँ पे कुछ sections different होते हैं, what was your approach for preparing them, when did you start preparing for them या कितना time लिया उनको prepare करने के लिए, and finally what are some of the resources that you used or would recommend the students.
The first exam that I gave was CAT. It took place on 20th November. While preparing for CAT, I had a general idea कि बचे हुए exams का syllabus क्या है. Consider एक particular topic है, उसका सिर्फ 60% सिलेबस कैट में आता है, बट इन सम अदर एग्जामिनेशन गोइंग टू बी 75%. इफ आई एम इन द फ्लो, I would complete that chapter till 75% so that I am prepared for the next examination as well. For quants, I preferred Unacademy while preparing, but earlier while I was starting, I went with Rodha, and the books I preferred were Arun Sharma for both. And while preparing for VRC, I went with Eon essays. There are different kinds of essays. I kept on reading various editorials, which gave me a sufficient idea like what methods I should use and what approach I should have.
So you talked about CAT in fair detail. I also want to stress more on, let's say, the first exam which is there, which is NMAT. So if we discuss the syllabus or the pattern of this paper, how similar is it to the CAT exam? What is the difference between CAT and NMAT other than the institutes it leads you to? And how should a person approach this exam differently than CAT?
To be honest, while going for the NMAT examination, I went it as I went for CAT examination, because the only change that I could find personally was there was a change in difficulty level. Comparatively, is a little easier. You need to have better speed while giving NMAT examination. Actually, in NMAT examination, you've got 3 sections. In NMAT examination, you get the option to choose which section you want to solve first. Started with quants because I'm good in quants. As per my expectations, I thought that quants will be a bit simpler to CAT, but it was at par. In fact, the questions were a little lengthier. In like many people, they think that quants is easier in NMAT, but it's equal. There's no difference at all. If you move on to the LRDI section, difficult level is hard in CAT, and in NMAT I'll give it moderate. But when you move on to VRC section, it's again almost at par, and it depends on what kind of passages you are comfortable in.
So to experience the NMAT pattern, because you mentioned that in NMAT you can choose this section as compared to CAT. So then should you take separate mocks, and if you have to take separate mocks, what resource would you recommend, or where did you practice this from?
They do give you their own mocks. They've given 2 mocks of their own that you can give before coming to the examination. If you just want to experience the exam, don't go for any other mocks. Just give that mock. You'll exactly know what the paper pattern is, what the timings are, and how you should manage your own time during the examination. But if you need proper resources, even in Unacademy, they've got their question papers, they've got mock papers everywhere. Whatever tuition you have opted for NMAT, I don't think you need to give another particular test series. You don't need to subscribe.
Okay, awesome. So from what I'm understanding about the NMAT exam, you're saying that it's absolutely similar to CAT, it's just easier, and you don't need any additional resource. You just take the sample mocks and you should be done with preparing for this exam, but you keep a 15 days gap. Now we'll move to the next exam, the best one for you, which is SNAP. And if you could stress on, let's say, how did you prepare for it? What was your strategy? How is it different from CAT? Everything, if you could walk us through.
SNAP is completely different from all the examinations that I gave. You compare ZAT, IFT, CAT, there's similarity between them. At least the sections that are common, they're quite similar. But in SNAP, it's totally different because SNAP is speed-based examination. They just don't want to see your knowledge. Knowledge matters, but with that, how fast you can think. They want you to be quick on your feet. Whereas when you're giving CAT examination, even if you're not able to solve that fast, it's fine. Solving 15 or odd questions in 40 minutes is okay, but here you have to solve 60 questions in 60 minutes. In this examination, there are 15 questions of English, 25 is for LRDI and 20 is for quants. The syllabus over here is quite different. It's not proper VRC. You don't get RCs over here. Rather, you will be asked that what language is this particular word derived from? Was it derived from Greek, Latin? You need to study those kind of things for a snap. When you're preparing for snap, you need to give those 14 days that you get after IFT completely focused on snap. You will be preparing DM on the side, attend whatever lectures that are going on, practice for it, but make sure that you are familiar with the concepts that are asked in snap. The syllabus not only for English but also for quants is different in snap. There are particular topics that are not asked in CAT, XAT or any other examinations. So just go through the syllabus once, make sure that you're thinking fast on your feet, you're thinking fast. You need to get 45 odd questions right, and they don't give you sectional cutoffs like other examinations. Overall cutoff, it goes quite high.
So, in case of SNAP, because you mentioned that the pattern varies a lot from the CAT exam, both in terms of the attempt strategy and also in terms of the syllabus, what resources would you recommend? Because here I think you would at least need to go through the syllabus and put in some extra effort. So what did you refer to for this?
Even the authorities of Symbiosis, they do know the syllabus is completely different. They themselves give you different kind of study materials that you can refer. SIBM has got a special session held known as Coffee with SIBM. They even help you with the preparation stuff. You can study those materials, and the best way to practice for snap is giving mocks. Like no matter how much you study, you're completely changing your exam strategy. The only way to overcome that is giving different various numbers of mocks. I just search for the past year papers. Like I was in an academy, I could easily get those past year papers. In my opinion, if you're giving a particular examination that's completely different and you don't have that much amount of time to prepare for it, just past year papers they do. You'll be able to map out exactly where you are standing with that batch which gave the examination. It's actually the easiest exam. It's way to focus on your speed. It's not easy to think that fast after coming from examinations like IFT and CAT. You don't even get proper time to think whether I want to solve this question or I want to skip this question. You get that opportunity while giving CAT. Strategy changes. You need to be like at the first glance, you should be able to know whether you'll be able to solve that question or not. And rather than thinking, मेरे से होगा नहीं होगा क्या होगा, mock do, you'll know where you're standing.
Okay, so we've talked about CAT, we've talked about SNAP, we've talked about NMAT. What about an exam like IIFT? How do you prepare for it? What is the syllabus like? How is it different from CAT?
IIFT syllabus, you get a completely whole section added, GK. Many people that think that GK hai, kya hi to hoga, kar lege GK easily. It's not that easy because it's not your everyday GK that you normally read. World Cup kaun jeeta tha 2019 ka? That's not the kind of questions they're going to ask you. They expect that you know what's happening in the economic world, in the political world. That's the kind of questions that they are gonna ask. So, like, where did the G summit happen this year? This kind of things you need to be prepared for. The 1 week that you have after CAT exam, like in my case, I had 1 week. My complete focus was on GK because anyways, quant, LRDI and VRC, the syllabus was same more or less. A couple of topics here and there you can afford to skip, but you can't skip a whole section because here sectional cutoffs matter. Just say in CAT, there are sectional cutoffs to qualify for IIMs. The same holds true for IFT as well. During my time, it was 6 or 7 marks, I guess, out of 30. And even that's tough to cross for people. Whatever you have prepared for CAT, that's sufficient for IFT in those 3 sections. The only thing you need to focus on is GK.
How about if you walk us through what you did for GK for the IIFT section, and particularly other than the current affairs, do they also ask static questions? Because in the beginning you were mentioning static questions. In IIFT, do they ask those kind of questions?
Not that much as you would expect, but there are a few static questions in any GK exam that you give. Even in XAT, they are going to ask you GK. There are going to be static questions present. The material that I look for, obviously, whatever is happening currently, there are institutes that give out their monthly newsletter. If you're joining a particular institute, they will give you the material. Even a 30-page booklet will create a difference of qualifying or disqualifying from that particular institute.
Okay, how about people who are self-preparing? Like, where can they refer to these kind of newsletters from, or is there any resource that they can refer to?
Look, if there's a particular material you are unable to find, just Google it. For IFT, you can just Google IFT GK questions or IFT GK booklet. There are various sites or various institutes those who give out free materials during the last few days. It will help out all the students, those who are preparing on their own.
So now we are left with only one exam, which is the ZAT exam. यहाँ पे I have multiple questions. First of all, from what I've heard from people say that it's a very important exam other than the CAT exam. But if it happens to be the first exam that you're giving, then how your strategy will change. And rest of the questions are the same, that how difficult is it versus CAT, how different is it versus CAT, what are the materials to use.
In case that is happening before, give your best for DM. Decision making is a particular area where many people face problems. So just solve as many papers as you can, solve as many questions as you can. Again, my suggestion over here would be go with the past questions. No matter how much you practice, no matter how much material you refer to, what XLRI wants, no one can predict it properly. Going through past questions would give you a fair idea about what kind of thinking they're looking into.
How about the section of GK? Because you mentioned ZAT and you mentioned decision making in there. There's another different section which is GK. Is that not important enough to stress for this exam?
And during ZAT 2022, GK had no weightage at all in the final score. You didn't even need to pass a certain number of marks. It had absolutely zero weightage. What I'll suggest is whatever you're prepared for IFT, just prepare it properly. They do ask you questions related to geography as well. While asking you GK, like where is this particular thing located? Where is this particular thing situated in? There were match the columns during my examination. Again, past papers, institute material, it will be a good reference for you. Many people in my batch, they took GK lightly for that because they had already realized that it's going to have zero weightage in the final score. But don't do that. Institute like XLRI is giving it in their examination, it's going to have some impact during your PI session. Maybe they can judge you on the basis of that. If you're scoring too low on GK, they might judge you before your interview goes. After your that main paper is done, you'll get additional time in the end in which you have to solve the GK section as well as write your VAT answer. So prepare for that. Your VAT does hold weightage during your interview rounds. Again, it didn't hold any weightage during our time in the main selection, but it had direct implication for your interview rounds. So prepare for that. And anyways, it will be helpful for you when you will be going for the GDPR rounds. I think VAT will be reintroduced either this year or next year. So it's always beneficial to be prepared for it.
And how about the other sections which are like common across the different exams? How would you say they are different in ZAT versus CAT or any other exam?
Those three sections, they come as it is into ZAT examination. There might be a couple of topics that are missing or a couple of topics that are new. Other than that, there is no major change in ZAT examination. The only change that you'll face during giving ZAT examination is if you're leaving more than 8 questions unanswered. After that, each question that you're not attempting, you'll be penalized for that. But just because they are deducting 0.1 marks, don't go haywire on attempting, because otherwise you'll be losing 0.25 marks.
So I think we've like broadly covered all the exams. You've also walked us through your preparation strategy and the resources for the different exams. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to help someone who's watching to decide कि उनको कौन सा एग्ज़ाम देना है, and also how are they going to approach the different exams. And you know, Yash, this question was asked so often on the channel. Like I really wanted someone to address this, and now it's finally done. So I'm pretty happy about that. I can't thank you enough for coming onto the channel and doing this.
The person you follow during your preparation, that person is inviting you to their own channel. Not just inviting you, that person actually found you out on LinkedIn. That's a big deal.
For every single person who's watching this, I would like to thank you on behalf of them, because you've really addressed an important point in their preparation journey.